There's some really interesting things going on in a very small country, uh, but you're not gonna hear about it in the media. Well, you're gonna hear that there is some kind of vote and so on, but you're not gonna hear what's really going on. So, let me break it down. There's an election, and in the election they bundled together three different issues. One is about joining NATO, second is about to change the name to North Macedonia, and the third one is applying for EU membership. So the election was held about a week ago, and Macedonia, it's divided, you can say, in mainly two pieces. You have a big Albanian minority, about 25% of the population. They were very pro-NATO, pro-EU oriented. And then you have the ethnic Macedonians, who are the most part of the population, and most of them choose to boycott that election. And here I want to show you the results. 94% voted yes, 5.8% voted no to the deal. No, they voted no to joining NATO and so on. But the registered turnout, in order for this election to be valid, it needed to be 50%. And they only reached 36.9%. So it was very obvious to everybody that this election was a clear no to the deal. So if we look at some headlines, we see low turnout kills the Macedonian name change referendum. In the blow to the west, most Macedonians sit out to vote to unlock NATO membership, Washington Post. So it was a clear no to the deal. It was a no to NATO, no to the name change. It was crystal clear to the whole world. Or was it really crystal clear? Comes a comment from Edward Kukan, who's a member of parliament in the EU. I congratulate Macedonians on the referendum result on the name issue and the future of country in the NATO of EU. Overwhelming majority of citizens cast a vote supporting the agreement. What? Here comes to the State Department. US welcomes the result. We strongly support agreements in full implementation. Johannes Kahn is also some big shot from EU. I congratulate the citizens voted today. Very significant yes vote. Jens Stoltenberg, head of NATO. I welcome the yes vote in the referendum. I urge all political parties to engage in construction responses to seize this historical opportunity. This is called cognitive dissonance. Resounding yes in the referendum in Macedonia, says Carl Bildt from Sweden. We have to give him some credit though. He says that the turnout at the end of the day is disappointing. So he does give some recognition here for the role. But the road ahead is more tricky. But it's important to press on. What does he mean with press on? So let's see what the Macedonian president had to say about this. This guy is a puppet. He's pro-NATO, pro-EU guy. Let's see his response.
Majority of people boycotted the referendum.
I expect lawmakers from the opposition party to respect the democratic decision of the majority among those who voted. Otherwise, there is no other way. We'll need to use the other democratic instrument, and that means early parliament elections.
Yes, he nailed it. He just played stupid. Let's forget about the 50% rule and hold our thumbs and hope that people are so ignorant that everybody else forgot about it also. But definitely his friends in the West, they forgot about the 50% rule. In front of you we have a NATO membership map. And we see that the red dot is Montenegro. They actually already joined. Kosovo is already occupied by NATO. So the next one was Macedonia. And then we have Serbia. The interesting thing with Serbia is that because they know that Serbia is never going to officially be, they're never going to be able to join because of the people, how they feel against NATO because of the NATO bombardments in 1999. So what the puppet government have done is that they signed all the ratifications and all the agreements, which is a part of being a NATO member, but they just excluded the NATO membership itself. So they already have the agreements that NATO have access to Serbia's infrastructure and so on, and they already are harmonizing their systems with NATO and so on. So that's another way to do it. So we can just expect after this, we can expect expansions toward Moldavia, Ukraine, and probably Caucasus as well. So this is a known pattern by now, is when the EU and NATO get an unfavorable result in an election, is what they do is they twist and turn and they funnel in more and more money into these elections until they get the result they want. So what they do is exactly what Colbitt says. They press on and they just continue until they achieve their goal. And this has happened many times before. I mean, during the time when the Lisbon Treaty was ratified in Europe, they just got a no in an election and they just continued on. Here you see an interview with Margot Wallström. She was an EU commissioner back then. And just look at her reaction here. This really captures their mindset.
I'm joined now from Brussels by Margot Wallström, Vice President of the European Commission. Your boss, José Manuel Barroso, said the treaty isn't dead, the treaty is alive. Can you explain to voters what they would have to do to kill it?
I think, first of all, if we are serious about democracy, I think we have to understand why the Irish people voted no. That must be sort of the first stage, and this is what the Irish and what we will contribute to do until the heads of state and governments meet.
Presumably they voted no because they don't like the treaty, but your boss is saying it will go on. I'm just asking you, what would they have to do not to have it?
I think you just have to find out, and I think the Irish government will make the analysis, and we will also, through the Eurobarometer, try to find out more. Exactly as we did after the French and the Dutch votes as well, and the answers were very different actually if you compare what the voters in France and in the Netherlands said. So that's the first stage,
no.
And then they will have to discuss.
But is there anything
and then they have
voters
to discuss
could do?
What to do.
Is there anything voters could do to get rid of this treaty? In a democracy.
In a democracy, then you listen to the concerns and you see, is there anything we can do to meet those concerns? What exactly was it that they were worried about and that made them say no?
But you see,
the political leaders have invested so much political capital and time and energy to try to get a new machinery, to get the EU to work better. So of course they will not give up easily. They will try to find a way forward, because we need to make it more democratic and more open and more effective.
But do you see that the fundamental problem here is that many voters throughout Europe think that the EU is an undemocratic imposition, and they don't object to membership of the EU, they just object to the way it's being run and things are imposed on them. And when voters say no, you say we're going to go on and trying to find a way to make you say yes.
No, I think that what we have done here is, of course, that member states decide themselves on how they want to ratify a new treaty. All the leaders have, of course, signed up to this particular treaty. And in Ireland, according to the national constitution, they have to have a referendum. And if there is 18 member states having said yes, and one member state saying no, then I think all member states will want to have a say in all of this. And of course you have to analyze why there was a no. Is there anything we can remedy? Is there anything that can be corrected? And that analysis has to take place first of all.
But just to go back to the point, for the voters, the only voters who've had a say on this treaty, the only ones, the Irish voters, very intelligent, very well-informed people, quite a big turnout, they said no, and yet the process still goes on. So therefore, that is absolutely what people mean by the democratic deficit.
But let's leave it to the leaders to discuss what to do in a situation like this. And remember, the problems have not gone away because the Irish have said no. The problems of a European Union with a democratic deficit, with a number of new challenges, with 27 member states and not 12, and with the machinery that was designed for 12 and not 27, the problems have not gone away. And this is still what we expect our political leaders to tackle. If we want to be effective fighting climate change or dealing with high oil prices, then we'd better equip the European Union to do that effectively and more democratically. Okay. And that was the starting point of this whole discussion. And I think that's where we have to focus our efforts right now.
Margot Wallström, thank you very much for joining us from Brussels.